am Jeanne Grosset, and welcome to my natural healing and cooking class. Today I'm going to do a demonstration for you, and today's topic for the class is the 5 pillars of health, which is basically the core of all of the teaching that I do. I am a teacher, a culinary medicine instructor for the University of California in San Diego, and I am the lead instructor. I get to have this really great job. I get to teach people how to take their food and how to basically rebalance their body for exactly what they want when it comes to health and longevity and these things, or at least get a lot closer to what we desire. And the 5 pillars of health is something that we see in a lot of different practices at the core. It's at the core of macrobiotics. It's at the core of a lot of different plant-based diets that work really well at rejuvenating and rebuilding the body. And what it really boils down to, those 5 pillars of health, is organic, whole foods that are balanced according to your season, the time of year that it is, and your demographic. Where are you? So those of you in Israel, your balance is going to be a little bit different from somebody who lives, let's say, in a much colder climate, that's a damper climate, and at different times of the year, you yourself, living in Israel, are going to experience different seasons. You're going to want to change and modify your diet a little bit according to those seasons so that you too can be in balance with nature around you. Because when we're in balance with nature around us, when that harmony is established, everything just kind of works better, falls into place easier. The body has the elements it needs to rejuvenate itself, to balance itself. And when we have the right ingredients for this, life just becomes a lot easier. For instance, I got into doing all of this practice about 20 years ago now. My first husband was diagnosed with metastasized prostate cancer at the age of 40. It was out of his prostate and had moved into his bones. So his Western medicine prognosis at that time was that he was going to live probably about 3 to 5 years with some aggressive hormone therapy treatments. And this 250-pound Marine, you know, the thought of going on a hormone replacement, a hormone therapy, to basically slow the cancer down was just something he didn't even want to think about. And the other alternative that they had for him, because of where that cancer was located in the bone, was direct beam radiation. And this, more than likely, because of the location of it, could take the chance of paralyzing him. So the outcome was not good for him. And we had a 2- and a 4-year-old at home. And I thought, okay, what can I do besides sit here and cry about what's happening? What can I actively do to help him, to help my family? And I had heard about macrobiotics and this amazing practice. And I figured, okay, I can get into the kitchen and I can do something about this, whatever it is. And I got into the kitchen and I started cooking whole grains in their whole form. And I took all the meat and the dairy out of the kitchen. We still held on to fish a couple times a week, changed where we were getting it from, better quality fish, these types of things. But we went for that macrobiotic balanced diet with the help of a macrobiotic counselor and balanced out his diet in such a way that 8 months later, he had a clean bill of health. It was mind-blowing. And while all this was happening, I was changing too. I ate the same food as him. I was making it every day. So, you know, I was spending about 8 hours in the kitchen learning how to do a lot of this stuff. And there was a lot of home remedies. And it was actually a pretty grueling protocol, but we got it done. He did it 8 months later, clean bill of health. A lot of people even called it miraculous. But I knew I was up at 4 o'clock every morning cooking that menu, putting those things together and watching him change. And in the process of him changing, so did I. That weight that I could never take off went away. My horrible, horrible, horrible skin problems. I had terrible cystic acne most of my life, cleared up and went away. My digestive issues went away. My severe hypoglycemia went away. My children, who had been kind of hyperactive prior to changing our diet, all of a sudden were calming down and being well behaved and absorbing information instead of reflecting it and running around. And I had thought all these years, because I was an athlete, we had been eating healthy. But I had been eating a standard American diet, a sad diet. I had been eating a diet of what I thought vegetables were, which was like iceberg lettuce with some veggies in it, with, you know, ranch dressing. That was a salad. And if I was on a diet, it was a non-fat, low-calorie version of that, highly processed. The vegetables I was getting was limited. Nowadays, I eat vegetables, like a vast array of them, but the majority of the vegetables I'm coming in contact with on a daily basis, most people don't know what they are, and they're powerful vegetables. So I encourage people all the time in my cooking classes, go to a farmer's market, go check out what's in season, what has been freshly picked, what is local. For instance, right now here in the San Diego farmer's market, celery root is a very popular thing. And a lot of the CSAs and things around here right now, we're all being COVID compliant, and it's pickup. So in the boxes now, we have these beautiful celery roots. And the other day, my husband, who's a fabulous chef, went ahead and took celery root, cut it nice and thin in slices, steamed that, and used it for the lining of a baking, what you usually would do with a loaf. Lined it with that, filled it with this beautiful purple yam, almost like hummus consistency of mashed yams, folded it together, popped it into the oven, and made these amazing loaves. You know, it's a vegetable, and it's a root vegetable. If you can do it with a carrot, you can do it with any of the other roots. And you can have fun with it. You can get creative, try new things. You know, in the world of Mother Nature is giving us all the different stuff that we need to cleanse and nurture the body. The vegetables are going to be the vehicles for really doing a lot of the cleansing. This here is a daikon root. If you've never tried daikon root, this guy here is from the radish family, and it really helps with melting and moving things in the body is the way I like to think about it, like energetically. It helps to melt and move stagnation. For instance, cysts and tumors. In a medicinal protocol diet, we will use daikon fairly, you know, regularly, pretty much on a daily basis in some form to help with stagnation. If you've had a diet where you've had a decent amount of meat and saturated fats over the years, and you have cysts or, you know, little fatty cysts, tumors, things like this that you'd like to kind of melt and move, stagnation of fats in different places, kidney stones, gallbladder stones, liver stones, this vegetable in your diet can be very helpful. And so can all the other veggies. But this one especially for melting and moving things. We want to make sure on a daily basis we get our green veggies. Look at these beautiful green veggies. These green veggies, I mean, if you even look at this looks like a lung, okay? A bronchial tube, all of that vein patterns is where you're getting your air from. Well, in the world of natural foods, all of these green veggies are good for that upward rising energy of the body. All of this upper part of the body, they help to cleanse it. This gives us also energy. You having trouble getting out of bed in the morning? You having trouble with energy? Are your hormones a little bit off? Are things just, you're just having trouble getting up and going? Green means go. So collards, kale, hardy greens, the nice hardy ones on a regular basis, a couple times a day. Okay, we want to get that good old-fashioned chlorophyll that's been around forever, giving energy to animals, to people, that chlorophyll, you know, that liquid sunshine in plants. That's what we want to make sure we have on a daily basis. Green means go. If you are constipated, green will help get things moving. High fiber food helps get things moving. And for this time of year, for people who are now suffering from the 105-degree weather, we can cool off using the good old green cabbage. And this is something that's kind of fun with cabbage. We can use this topically also to cool off. You can take a couple of the exterior leaves and you fold them over. You can put them right on the back of your neck and put a scarf around that. It will help cool down your body while you're outside. If you are a gentleman with no hair, you can take off a whole leaf of this, put it right on your head. It will also help to cool you off. A few years ago, I had a camera crew that was out at Burning Man. A good friend of mine was in charge of the camera crew. They literally took a case of Cabbage with them, and that's how they stayed cool at the event. They said people didn't even notice it was under their hats and stuff. But it's another just quick trip that Mother Nature can help us in many ways with getting what we need, whether it's internally, externally, changing that thermal temperature, nurturing, cleansing. Now, all these lovely jars and stuff that I have over here, one of the first things about the 5 pillars of health is that whole foods and keeping whole foods whole. Now, a place where a lot of people get confused on what exactly a whole foods is in the grain area of things. This here is brown rice, and this is a whole grain in its whole form. I have the bran on the outside, and the whole thing is intact. But if I take this brown rice and I put it through a food mill or something to blend it into an actual flour, I've now changed the actual amount of surface layer that each one of these little grains has. So it's gone from being a whole grain into all these little tiny particulates. I'm then eating it in that particulate form. So it's already been pre-processed. When a whole grain has been pre-processed, it no longer responds in the body the same way as the whole grain in its whole form. A whole grain in its whole form is trimming. It actually gives you nice, long, lean muscle. It has a trimming, building quality in the body. But if I take that same brown rice and I turn it into a flour product and I eat that on a regular basis, I will get what I like to call more of like a Pillsbury Doughboy effect, okay? A fluffier effect, a fleshier effect. Because now that whole grain, which was once whole, once processed, doesn't respond the same way in the body. Now it responds like a sugar instead of a whole grain. It went from being a complex carbohydrate with all these fantastic benefits to a simple carbohydrate is how the body's now looking at it. So in the world of macrobiotics, when we're teaching a healing protocol, flour products, and this blew my mind when I first heard it, when I first got into the world of macrobiotics, twice a week on flour products. I was eating flour products 2-3 times a day on the standard American diet when I crossed over. So twice a week for me was really hard because I had become a sugar junkie through my flour products. I was addicted to them. So I just put myself on a little schedule, and twice a week I picked my flour products, and over a period of time, I broke that habit. When I have been heavily stressed, I do admit that flour products, that's my comfort food. So if I want to be trimmer, I stay away from the flour products. If I want to be fleshier, I might get into them a little bit more, but we do want to be careful with flour products because, like I said, you're not getting your whole grain and its benefits if you're eating it in a flour form. So keep whole grains whole. Now here we have some beautiful red quinoa, nice and rich in minerals, high in protein. Now these forms of protein, I like to look at them like this form of protein, and yes, I said whole grains and protein in the same sentence because whole grains have protein. Okay, they're complete foods, they're awesome. They're not complete in the way of amino acids and stuff, but that's where in our whole foods plant-based diet, we go over to complete foods like fermented brown rice and get a complete spectrum of those amino acids. This here is a protein too. So you're looking for protein because you went over to plant-based? Stop looking if you're eating your vegetables and your whole grains and you're getting your miso in the morning. Awesome macrobiotic practice. Love it, will never change. I take my miso with me when I travel. Miso soup for breakfast. It has this amazing upward rising energy. It's a beautiful dose of probiotics first thing in the morning to boost your immune system, which right now with the COVID stuff going on, I'm sure everybody's interested in boosting their immune system some more so that we don't have to worry about catching something. Keeps us stronger. So other probiotic rich foods too that are in your basic natural healing diet are going to be things, you know, from like umeboshi plums is another great way of getting it. Sauerkraut, and you can make sauerkraut at home, which is really super easy. The only thing I suggest is if you make 2 crocks of, you know, massive crocks of sauerkraut, make sure you have a refrigerator to put what you just made in it afterwards. We just had to get a second fridge. So sauerkraut, here's a lovely sauerkraut crock right here. This is one of our smaller ones actually. We have really big ones, but sauerkraut is really simple to make. It can get really expensive in the store, but it is simple to make. If you are going to make sauerkraut, I do recommend getting a crock with the water moat. As you can see Patrick showing right now, around the edge of that is a water moat. That traps any particulates that get into the air so that it doesn't get into the kraut. When we first started making sauerkraut, we did lose a lot of sauerkraut, I think one time, maybe twice, because of, you know, just you think you got it covered with a cheesecloth, you think everything's going great, a little bit of something gets in there, and the next thing you know it, you just lost 20 heads of cabbage. So this investment over here, these crocks are great. This one here takes about a total of 6 pounds of cabbage. Yeah. So if you are doing a ferment for like 30 days and there's 2 of you at home or 4 of you at home, this is enough sauerkraut to keep rotating for what you have in the house. So you don't have to buy any. You'd just be buying for 6 pounds, probably.
I'm sure that's more like 10 pounds.
That's more like 10 pounds. How many heads of cabbage do you break down to go into this crock?
4.
So 4 heads of cabbage is what would go into this crock to make sauerkraut, and it will hold you over, quantity-wise, probably a good few months easily.
Depends on what you're.
But it depends on how much you eat. If you have someone in your household who eats and eats and eats, like my husband, who never gains any weight, eats a ton of sauerkraut, loves it. So we go through it a little faster, but for most people, it will probably last a couple of months. So another fabulous whole grain. There's really 4 primary ones that we use in a healing diet that are the non-glutinous ones. Although there's a little bit of gluten in brown rice, but it's not anything that will irritate most people, but people with celiac and things like that need to make their own decisions. So buckwheat here, great for the heart, even looks like little hearts. Maybe Patrick could pull 1 or 2 of those out to see if you guys can see them up close. So whole grains whole. That should be your main grain, at least 1 whole grain whole every day, but optimally 2 to 3. Now, one of the things right now too we want to look at is seasonal. Right now, the seasonal time of the year is spring. So this is the time of the liver and gallbladder. There's a lot of cleansing going on. There's a lot of traditional spring cleanses and things like that. Vegetable juicing is great for spring cleansing, but juice from fruit is something you want to avoid for the most part. Fruit without fiber equals sugar. Fruit and fiber need to stay together. So if you want to drink fruit, make a smoothie. If you want to make juice, juice veggies. Now there's a couple of fruits you can still juice that don't have that same response to the liver, a sugar response, okay, as fruit does without its fiber. And that is the green apple, it's the sour stuff, and the lemon, also sour. So if you want to juice and put fruit in a green apple, totally fine, no problem. But if you put in the red apple, or if you put in other kinds of fruit, fruit without fiber is like consuming sugar. Sugar gets to us in different ways when we change the equation on how Mother Nature created it. That's why we want to keep whole food, fiber, rich foods like grains in their whole form. And we want to hold on to the fiber with our fruit. Now, as far as beans go, good sources of beans are another way to get more protein-rich foods. And unlike meat, they don't come with baggage. They just don't. You know, you've got these great sources of protein without the baggage. Animal foods come with insoluble fibers and baggage and hormones of those actual animals. So what we found over time in the medical world is that a high fiber plant-based diet is the one that really helps the body to heal itself. It's kind of like you're giving it the proper ingredients so that it can change this chemistry set. I like to think of food as kind of like the alchemy for the body. We can change where it's going to go. We can make ourselves golden by giving ourselves those right ingredients so the body can do what it knows how to do. So adzuki beans are one of my all-time favorites. You can even make tea with these. That helps to trim the body down, actually trim you down. And they are very nurturing to the kidneys and the bladder. If you have bags under the eyes, I know I have some today, I could use some adzuki bean tea or just some adzuki beans in recipes like soups and things like that. You can make hummuses with pretty much any kind of bean. It doesn't have to just be garbanzo beans, those high-fat beans. It can be other types of beans. So when you go to process it, you can add a little bit more oil or just more water to thin it out because it has less fat than the garbanzo beans. Lentils are a really great way and a quick cook for hot weather. The longer we cook something, the more heat that goes into that dish, the more heat it will create in us. That's why in traditional food practices around the world, we'll see long cooked dishes in cold, damp places that are traditional. Ireland, England, stews, long cooked things. But when it's hotter out, we want to cook things a shorter period of time. We want to respect the season and do things a little bit quicker the hotter it gets out. So lentils are a quicker cook and they don't need to soak. They're easy to digest all by, just cooking them naturally. If you have trouble digesting beans, if you get gassy and bloated from beans, soak them first. Discard the soaking water. Put fresh water in them and then cook. If beans still make you gassy, you need to chew them better than you're chewing them right now. Because the better you chew them, the better you will digest them. Because digestion starts here in the mouth, in your saliva. And if we're not chewing food long enough to turn it into a liquid, we're not mixing the saliva with the food. I was really guilty of this when I first started doing this kind of eating. I realized from being an athlete and training, and I was always just eating, gulping, and running, and very rarely ever sitting down, and I surely was not chewing. Now I chew. Huge difference on my digestion. I'm also using my food better because I'm chewing better. Jessica Porter does a great class on chewing. I'm not sure if she already did her class or not, but I think for the forum she is doing her chewing class. It's a fabulous class, a must watch. Jessica's a brilliant teacher and I adore her classes, so check it out. It's an amazing class on just chewing and how it can change your life.
She taught her class. She taught her class and it's available on all of the recordings of all of the classes, as you will be.
Okay, awesome. Yep, Jessica, you guys definitely check out Jessica's class. It's a great class. This here, this big old jar, we go through a little bit of kukicha tea in our house. Can you tell this is, these are the actual twigs, okay? Kukicha tea is really interesting. It is the branches of the green tea plant. So this is the more ionizing, the more contracting energy of this plant. It's high in minerals. It is a natural astringent. So I can even use it topically on my skin. I've seen it do wonders for shingles, literally topically applied, and the person drinks it too to help with these kinds of inflammatory responses topically. But also, being a natural astringent, it's also alkaline. So it can really help a person, if they're under a lot of stress, if they need energy. This has natural caffeine in it that is good caffeine. It's a green tea kind of caffeine, not the other kind of caffeine. So kukicha in a world by itself is something that we see in the world of macrobiotics. And you can use it on a daily basis. I really like drinking kukicha tea because it makes me feel nice and strong and alert. It also, if in between meals I'm just getting hungry or, I'm checking the refrigerator, a few sips of kukicha tea and I'm good to go. Because half the time, sometimes I think I hit the fridge or look for something because I'm bored. And I'm sure a lot of us do that. So having a little bit of tea to sip can be a good thing to just kind of keep yourself busy. Now, one thing we also want to see in a natural whole foods diet is seeds. Seeds are super little powerhouses of nutrients. They also, for instance, these are black sesame seeds here. They have really high level of minerals in them. If your hair is turning gray prematurely, if you are having trouble with your eyesight, different things like that, you can take a tablespoon of this and make a cup of hot tea with it. That is very nurturing for the body and can be very beneficial for people, and just a different way of using those sesame seeds. You can sprinkle these into salads. I like when seeds are this small, like a sesame seed, to not only get them in the whole form, but to also blend them to make them more available to you. Little tiny seeds like flax seeds, hemp seeds, sesame seeds, when we blend them, they're a lot easier to digest. I know a lot of you have seen what they look like. They're super, super tiny. And a lot of us, when we're chewing, aren't catching them to break them down. So if we make dressings with them, that's a great way to turn them into first a powder. I make natural dressings all the time from scratch, super simple. Just you have a blender, it's dry, you put some seeds in, blend those dry, and then add some vinegar, add some water, and then I add herbs, and voila, I have a salad dressing. So seeds can also be very beneficial for people, for instance, women who are in menopause, or teenagers who are going through puberty, things like this. All of that can be very beneficial with seeds, especially when it comes to hormones, those pumpkin seeds. Good for men and women, all of us, so for hormonal balance. Patrick's showing you some of the tan sesame seeds right now too. And seeds, you can roast them, make them even easier to digest. You can do them raw. Even just roasting the seeds between, if you made 2 separate salad dressings and you roasted the seed for one and you didn't roast them for the other and the ingredients were exactly the same, it tastes different. So you can have fun with variety and stuff just by roasting something or not. Now, when I roast seeds, I get my seeds and I rinse them and I put them in a hot saute pan and I just dry roast them until, for instance, sesame seeds, a metal spoon doesn't stick to them. They're done. They don't need to turn dark brown. Your nuts, when you're roasting them, things don't need to turn dark brown to be roasted. Roasted is when they're fragrant. Roasted is when they're lightly shifting in color and turning a little bit brown. And that's when we want it. It's almost like when it starts smelling really yummy and delicious in your kitchen, they're probably good to go. You don't need to over roast things and dry them out. We're kind of making them easier to digest by roasting them slightly, but also I find that fresh roasted nuts, the taste of it is amazing. I've now become a roasted nut snob. I do admit that I can't buy a bag of nuts that's already roasted. They never taste good enough anymore. And it's so simple and easy to do. You can roast a whole bunch at once, put them on a baking sheet, stick them in the oven.
Hi, I'm trying to listen to a Zoom thing.
So we have the possibility of doing bigger batches or smaller batches. If you're a super busy person and you're working all the time, batch cooking also, I encourage you to do it. Batch cooking is better than going out and eating fast food. It's a heck of a lot better. At the beginning of the week, you can make yourself a big pot of one whole grain and a big pot of a bean, or if you got more burners to work with, do a couple of each. And then leave some of the whole grain, use what you're going to use for that day for those meals, and leave the rest plain so that the grain and the bean are already cooked. And then you can add fresh vegetables and seasoning and turn them into what you want to right before you go to eat. So that longer cooking time has already been taken on a Saturday or Sunday, or sorry, not Saturday, but maybe a Sunday or a different day of the week when you have the opportunity to do a little bit of batch cooking. Your grains and beans too, if you cook extra, these freeze beautifully. That's some great food to have in the freezer for like an emergency where you just don't have time to cook or you're on the run. I prefer having that kind of emergency food in my freezer over something that's pre-packaged or processed. And it's a good way to, not waste things. Got extra food, put it in the freezer. College kids stop over. They can even take some home and stock their freezer with it too, so then I can feel better knowing that my kids are eating healthy while they're at school. Now, one of the areas of macrobiotics, which we see in a lot of diets that are just plant-based. You know, I get a lot of people who they're doing a plant-based diet, but it has no balance to it. And without balance, like anything else, things get a little, you know, out of balance, literally. But when a person eats plant-based, but they're not eating whole foods and they're not eating organic, and they're not getting a balance of the nutrients and stuff, even though it's plant-based, if it's really super highly processed, you're not getting the benefits of a plant-based diet. Those benefits come from the organic. They come from the balanced and seasonal, the diversity of what nature has to offer. And it's the whole foods in the whole form. These are the things that we're looking for rebuilding the body and nurturing it, not the highly processed, just plant-based foods, but the ones with the 5 pillars of health in mind. And in those 5 pillars of health, one of the things that we see on a regular basis is the use of sea vegetables. Okay? Now this here is a stick of kombu. And in many macrobiotic recipes, you will see kombu used, about an inch worth of it. So you would cut off an inch part of it here, and you would put that in to cook your grains or your beans. What that does is it actually helps make the grain or the bean more digestible. It helps with softening it. Think of it that way. This seaweed, and all seaweeds, have this really cool floating energy. Okay? Even if there's a hurricane going on up above, what is that seaweed doing? It's grounded and it's going with the flow. Now, wouldn't it be nice if we could all be just grounded and just going with the flow? Well, before I got into the practice of macrobiotics and before I started eating seaweeds on a regular basis, I was a much more intense person. And my nickname, which people who loved me, it was used as sarcastically, but there was some truth to it, began with a B. I was very aggressive, and I was an athlete, a downhill racer. So imagine that, me being aggressive. I was a much more intense person. When I started eating a more balanced diet, especially these seaweeds, I started mellowing out. I started being able to go with the flow more. I became a yoga teacher. It changed my life, getting this energy into my diet. Now, in the world of macrobiotics, we use, like I said, the kombu for grains and beans. We use a variety of other seaweeds too. They're all good for different things. This one here is an alaria that we have that is beautiful. We have some sea palm and some dulse and other sea vegetables. If you're not familiar with cooking sea vegetables, here's a couple of tricks. Number one, if you're just transitioning into eating sea vegetables and you don't like the taste of sea vegetables, this was me when I first started, didn't like the taste of it. So what I would do was I would cook with more veggies for the dish and use less sea vegetables to start, kind of weaning myself onto it. Because I didn't want to get grossed out and reject it from the beginning, because then I wasn't going to do it again. So instead, I put a little bit in and built up over time to where, you know, over the course of a few months, I was eating the proper amount. At first, when I was using the wakame in my miso soup in the morning, when I would drink my miso, that seaweed would stay in the bottom of the cup. I wouldn't eat it. I was still getting the nutrients, but I wasn't eating the seaweed. Over time, I started to slowly get used to eating the seaweed. So a lot of us who really love sweets don't, for whatever reason, seem to like seaweed. But there are people who love seaweed. There are people who don't like seaweed. But what I'm saying is learn to eat seaweed. Whether you're going to love it or not, it's something that helps you so much that it is literally part of the rebuilding of this body. It's the balancing of hormones. It's the minerals you need for hormones. Did you know that hormones are liquid minerals? We need good quality minerals to just sustain the running of this. And this is one of the most bioavailable places to get it, is your sea vegetables. And you don't have to eat a lot of them. You can eat, I've seen people eat bowls of seaweed. I would never be able to do that. But here's the thing, you can't absorb that much seaweed at one time anyway. You're not going to, it's too much. So you can eat a little bit of seaweed throughout the day and get enough seaweed. It doesn't have to be large amounts. For someone who's lacking minerals, let's say you have real thin nails, your hair is getting fine, things are, you know, you need more minerals in your diet to replenish, to rebuild. I find that nori, which is the sheet of seaweed that we make sushi with, a half a sheet of that, 1 to 2 times a day can be really beneficial for someone who's not getting enough minerals in their diet or needs to kind of reload. So that's what I do when I need some extra minerals. I eat a half a sheet of nori here or there. And it is nori. It's kind of ironic that nori backwards is iron, okay? It's all of nature's minerals. It's coming from salt water. It's the bottom of the ocean. It's kind of like, you know, growing in the most minerally rich dirt there is on the planet at the bottom of the ocean. And these plants are literally anti-cancerous, they're antiviral, they're antifungal. They help this body to rebuild and rejuvenate. So I'm closing up class with sea vegetables. Sea vegetables, you can get them like dulse flakes or nori flakes. You can get these things online if you can't find them in a local health food store, but I have a feeling Shulamit probably has some really great sources for sea vegetables in that. But in the shaker form, they're easy to transition over to. Put them on your grain or put them on a salad, even a little bit in soups and things like that, and start introducing those into your diet. I gave my husband a couple of links to share with everybody. If anybody has any questions, I guess we can open that up for a minute, but you're not still in charge. And I am the retreat
You got
director.
that right.
That's right, Ganat is always in charge. And I'm a retreat director for a event that is still happening in the fall right now. And it looks like California is going to open back up. But at happyhealthyretreats.com, we do an event that is called Summer Retreat at Pinecrest Lake. I will share on the Whole Health Forum page, if Ganat's okay with it, a coupon.
Of course, of course.
Might be interested, that will save you guys like $300 for registration fees. And I also am very happy to say that now for the University of California at San Diego, starting this July, we are doing online cooking classes. So starting this July, I will be teaching the Natural Healing and Cooking program from my own personal kitchen, just like you're seeing right here. And it is the first online course that we're going to be doing for the Natural Healing and Cooking program. So I'm really excited about that because up until now, it's always been you had to come to San Diego to take it. And now it's going to be available to people worldwide. So Patrick's going to share the actual link for that one too. And it's a lot more of this kind of stuff. We get into doing all different kinds of dishes, and it's a hands-on class. You will be cooking along with us. We'll be sending out a starter kit with all of your special ingredients, you know, like miso and seaweeds and things like that. So does anyone have any questions or anything, or everybody good?
You were great, Jeannie, as usual. How are you? It's Devorah.
Hi, how are you?
I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm hoping to see you next time I'm in San Diego.
Oh,
How was that event? You had like 2,000 people.
Yeah, it's the event. We get about 120 people at it.
You had like a bunch of chefs coming in. There was a couple of thousand people or something. That was in February. No? Am I mixing it up?
Nope. No, I think you're mixing it up. In February? What do we do in February? No? Oh, I know what you're talking about. Okay, so in February I did it was the Integrative Research Day. And yes. It was all of the doctors and dietitians and all the different people in the research study groups from around the country, well around the world, came together and did classes, and I made the food for them. And Patrick was actually in France when it happened, and I actually pulled it off. with
Right.
me and a couple of other women chefs who are macrobiotic chefs. We did it together. We had a great time. It was a really cool event. The research study groups are going fabulous. We're actually, even with the COVID going on right now, we are still doing our endometriosis study. We're wrapping it up remotely. So we're doing well with it. It's going really good.
Hi, Jeannie. Jeannie, can you hear me?
Yes, hi, who's this?
How are you?
How are you, my dear?
Do you remember me? How
How
you
can I
doing?
forget you?
You guys are great. I want to ask you a question. I love my kale, and I just want to know the best way of having it. I've had it raw, and I've had it steamed and lightly pan-fried. What would you recommend, the best way of having it?
Okay, so when it's hotter out, raw will cool you off more. So if it's really
Right.
hot outside, then you want to maybe just do, one of my favorite things to do with kale is when it's raw is just toss it with a little bit of sea salt and massage it so that it shifts to a brighter green. It kind of cooks at room temperature by doing that from the pressure and the salt.
Okay.
That helps with the digestibility of it. Because just kale, what we found in the medical world is just kale, without steaming it or doing something to help with the digestibility, you don't get as much out of it. So
Right.
you want to just put a little bit of sea salt on it and massage it, literally like, crunch
Massage it.
it. Change to a brighter green,
Okay.
and then make,
Mm-hmm.
salads with it. Steaming is good too. It's a good upward rising energy. Lightly steaming, as soon as it shifts color, get it out of the pan. Same with the saute. But you're just going to want to handle
Right.
this stuff real quick. But kale's awesome. You can't go wrong with kale.
What
they're
about,
they're more dry, but if you have a lot of extra kale around and you want something crunchy, you can make kale chips out of them. I just don't suggest doing
Yes,
too
yes,
much.
I have them.
It can dry you
Dehydrate
out.
them. Dehydrate them.
Yeah, you can
Yeah.
dehydrate.
Okay.
It's
Thank
good
you so much. Good to see you.
what about using nutritional yeast? Is that, because I have a kale salad that I make with nutritional yeast. It's a pecan parmesan type of
Mhm.
dressing. Is nutritional yeast really healthy? Because I like, there are differences of opinions, and it's hard.
Yeah, their opinion, it becomes very personal. How do you handle yeast? I personally, but I've also dealt with the gluten intolerance and bacteria imbalances. Went to Mexico, got really sick, threw my whole system off for years, this kind of stuff. So yeast for me is like a bomb. I blowed up, I can't handle it. Now, if you have really strong digestion and you can handle my nutritional yeast and you're okay with it, then, some here and there is fine. I find the problem with nutritional yeast for most people is and a lot of people who, jump over to a vegan diet will tend to do this. It's in a lot of recipes, so they'll do it like every day. And then they'll end up with too much yeast.
Mhm.
So, once in a while is not a problem. Once a week, something like that, if you digest it, fine, and you can handle it, sure. But if you're a person who's already sensitive to yeast, I would just avoid it. There's other ways to get like that cheesy, flavor through seasoning or something else. So it's beneficial for some, but others. People who are more active too, like athletes, triathletes, people like that, use it more of like a superfood for boosting energetically, kind of thing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Nice to see you.
It's good to see you too.
Thank
How
you. It
long
was
can you
amazing.
keep seaweed? I have some that's old because I didn't know what it was. I got it at a conference and I kind of always steered away from preparing it. Can you keep it a long time?
Okay, so we could bury it in a pyramid and dig it up in 1,000 years and you could still use it. So you're totally fine. It can be really old, it doesn't matter. It's dehydrated. It's like grains or beans. As long as you've stored it in a place that's dry, it's fine. We actually have some seaweed from the 60s that somebody gave us. They found it in the back of a cupboard and we have it and we've used some of it. Not a problem whatsoever. And this happens to a lot of people. They buy seaweeds, they go in the cupboard, and then they're there later. Seaweeds are actually a fabulous emergency food for this is the really old seaweed that Patrick's showing you from the 60s. It's a really great emergency food for a couple of reasons. First of all, if you had to walk somewhere, seaweed doesn't weigh anything. You can carry that with you. It also is loaded with minerals. So nutrition-wise, I mean, you can't go wrong. So emergency food, we have seaweed, we have brown rice, and we have miso. Literally, that's what our emergency stockpile is. So when you find seaweed back in cupboards, it's a good find. And umeboshi, yes.
So, Jeannie, I'm going to interrupt just for a moment and thank you. You're a wonderful teacher. It's such a pleasure to be with you. So I really want to thank you very much.
You're welcome.